Okay, hi friends. I need to do Survivor update. Um, so I'll probably put this on my smaller YouTube channel, Angie Disney. And originally, I came online to disclose, um, just to try and make sense of my life. And sometimes I get it out of balance where I'm trying to heal and recover, and then because my testimony resonates with so many people, I then try to go into helper mode, and it's great to help other people, but sometimes if it gets out of balance, it interferes with my own healing journey. So it's my nature to help, but like I said, it says love your neighbor as you love yourself. So if I stop loving myself, I'm not much good at loving my neighbor or helping. And I always explain that the simplest way to understand that is, on an airplane, if there's an emergency, a mother is instructed to put her own oxygen mask on first so that she's equipped to put her baby's oxygen mask on, her children. So I do a lot of journalism, and I've had a lot of trolling, and I'm realizing how it's affected the way I present. It's great here. And I don't want that to be the case, because it seems that YouTube in general, and disclosing about abuse in particular, it's just going to be a fact of life that victims will get trolled. It's disgusting. It's more victimization, and especially when it's led by people like Karen Irving, who was a trained psychotherapist, from Allen Memorial in Canada, and seems to have used her studies for the dark side of psychiatry and psychotherapy. But it still doesn't really excuse people like that trolling victims and survivors, some of them to suicide, So, I've noticed I've been trying to put my best foot forward and trying to remain strong and fearless in the face of attack and adversity. And there's only so long I can keep that up. I can't do that indefinitely without just losing my way a bit in my own healing. So I'm trying to write a book based on my sister and myself, the one that died in suspicious circumstances over 4 years ago. But it's very hard. So what I'm doing at the moment is just making short videos of frozen memories of our childhood. And it occurred to me as well, I wrote a eulogy for her funeral, and I think I wrote several pages. I probably still have that saved somewhere. But part of the problem with DID, dissociative identity disorder, is that getting things in context and sequential is challenging. It's hard to make a context out of our lives. They've been so insane, literally so crazy. So I've had a video on my mind for a while to make, called and when I talk like this, disclosing, when I interview others, it flows, but when I'm trying to disclose, I get slow speaking and a bit faltering. So for those that find that frustrating, there's somewhere on the YouTube where you can click and watch it at 1.5 speed or something like that. You can speed it up. What I'm trying to put in one place, one chain of thought, because that really helps with healing. I know Fiona Barnett's just written a book, I haven't read it yet, about healing from DID and, satanic ritual abuse and so on and so forth. But something that really helps me is taking a sequence thread. So it might be like the relationships I've had, since, 12 or whatever, or the places I've lived, which was a revelation to me when a counsellor asked me to do a geographical map of everywhere I'd lived, and I found out it was now 49 homes, 7 countries, 3 continents, and that blew my mind, and it helps the healing. And then also there's themes like the German angle of my MKUltra experience, you know, from being given accidentally a German birth certificate, even though I was born on a military base, you know, to a British mother and an Irish father. So the story was the registrar, the military registrar, was on holiday, so mummy just cycled in and got a German birth cert for me, you know, which is very strange. So there's a whole thread of German men that have been attempted to be superimposed into my life, including, you know, as potential husbands. But that's not what but I'm just saying those kind of, if you take a thread, like, you know, look at that and then try and track it back, that's helpful to get some sequence and context. But the one that's been jiggling around in my mind for a while is about, I don't know whether you'd call them men in black or handlers, or like the people that move the chess pieces around on a chessboard, move the pawns, the assets. Again, referencing Fiona Barnett, she was having a rant today about Ed Opperman saying she worked for the CIA. And, you know, I've said before, I believe I was a CIA asset, but we were unaware, we were victims. We never got a wage packet, you know. But I want to unravel this thing of the hidden hand, engineering, because it used to amaze me. I used to think, how could somebody engineer me into the relationships they did, or into the jobs they did, or into the milieu of, you know, royalty or aristocracy, or you know, CIA banks and all that kind of stuff. How can that stuff happen? So I'll just see if I can pull from memory a few of these, I don't know, men in black or puppet master, handler type memories. And again, I don't know if I'll get them in sequence. This is the best I can do with disclosing at this stage of my healing, which I've been neglecting, as I say, because I can get out of balance with helping others. So there'd be situations like, there was a house in Bradford-on-Avon in Wiltshire, and it was everything like you'd think it was a witch's cottage. That's exactly what it looked like. It was at the top of a hill, and it was a thatched cottage, just this very mysterious looking thatched cottage at the top of a hill in Bradford-on-Avon. And somehow I got invited for dinner there. And even though I'm very fearless, and I've actually lived quite a risk-taking life because of that programmed in fearlessness, but there are times in my life when I've known I'm in danger, or my spidey senses are like, something, alarm bells, you know. So just that, it was an attempt to draw me into a milieu of people who were much older than me. I think I was only about 13. And it was a bit shocking to get invited for dinner. And I thought it was a dinner party, so I thought there'd be like 4 or 6 people there, and it was just this one man. And so I've dissociated from a lot of the detail of it because I had alarm bells going off, and I did manage to extricate myself, you know, unless I've got a repressed memory of drugging or something, but I don't think so. I think I just realised I was in a dangerous situation, and I managed to extricate myself, which often happened. So that was strange. There was another Men in Black type experience. That might not be the right term, but it's the most curious thing. On one of the bridges in London, you know, all these bridges over the River Thames, and some of them are very grand, and you can take a ride down the River Thames and see all, you know, you can go under all the bridges. And bizarrely, my uncle by marriage, Albert Donnelly, that was a job he did for quite a while in London, as well as I think he had some other sort of, I think he was a professional gambler, and all sorts of, that was his day job in Westminster, was running these boat trips up and down the River Thames, because if I stayed with Auntie Nora, that would be one of the treats, was to get the tube up to Westminster and, you know, go on boat trips while Uncle Albert was working. And curiously as well, with Uncle Albert, he had this huge case in the Old Bailey, Albert Donnelly. I should research that. But it was all a big hush-hush thing in the family. I might have mentioned this before, where nobody was allowed to talk about it, and just his brothers attended. And I think they might have, they said, the story was it was for tax evasion. But I don't think you go to the Old Bailey for tax evasion. Just forgotten to get an ashtray, so just let me pause this. Yeah, I'm pretty sure you don't go to the Old Bailey for tax evasion. And I know that my dad and Uncle Sean, and I think Uncle Tony might have gone, I think all the brothers. My dad's one of 16, you know, children, and 11 survived, which in itself is maybe just a sign of the times, or maybe not. But I think almost all the brothers, maybe not Uncle Jerry, but I think almost all the brothers went to the Old Bailey. And it wasn't just a 2-hour hearing or something, it was quite intense. But I know they were very relieved, and I think the brothers pulled it out of the bag to pay his fine or whatever it was, you know. But the wives were never allowed to know the details of that. But that's so that's all by the by. But another strange encounter I had was a gentleman in London, again, invited me for dinner. I'd have been a bit older. And he lived in a little house on one of these spectacular bridges over the River Thames. It was so bizarre, it didn't look like a house. It, you know, with hindsight, well, even at the time, I thought it was very spooky. It was just very spooky. But I accepted this invitation for dinner. I thought he was interesting. He was insistent, and I was very compliant. If you've been abused as a child, your boundaries, unless you start your healing process or get proper help, your boundaries are not good. So you will accept invitations that, you know, you shouldn't. But again, I always think I had a good God and a good guardian angel, because many of dangerous situations I was, you know, I managed to extricate myself. But so that was another bizarre thing, was, you know, thinking I had the wrong place. I don't even know how I found it. We didn't have GPS or anything like that back then, and I could never read maps. But anyway, he lived in this, almost like a troll cave, almost like a goblin cave on a bridge in London. And I went for dinner, and the dinner was really strange. It was just red wine and cheese or something like that. And again, as I speak these things out loud, I have to wonder about drugging with hindsight. But again, I can't make up a memory if it's still drug suppressed, you know. And just as I study the deprogramming of abuse survivors, especially those that have been drugged, you know, it seems to me that truth serum administered, whether it's in anesthetic or in LSD or scopolamine, or there's lots of different drugs. I mean, it's an art form to these mad scientists. But it's almost like if you accidentally are administered a drug that acts as a truth serum, that's when things that the monsters hoped you'd never remember start to rise to the surface. And it's not false memory foundation crap. It's not social worker suggested or therapist suggested. It's not. It's, you know, the purpose of a truth drug is to bring to the surface that which has been either artificially or otherwise suppressed in the subconscious. Another time, again, these aren't in sequence, I wish I had a ghostwriter who put everything in sequence and try and make even a sequential context out of it all. But another very bizarre experience, I was in Würzburg with probably the German they tried hardest to marry me off to, who was a press attaché with the German embassy in the 70s. When I worked in the BCCI, which turned out to be a CIA money laundering crooked merchant bank, but I didn't know that. And he and I dated on and off for 25 years. And I was visiting him in Würzburg towards the end of that 25 years when I finally cut contact. And this would have been about 2000, I think the year 2000. And we went to a beer festival, Oktoberfest, and we cycled. It was in the next village, and it's all very flat. Well, not all of it, but a lot of the surrounding townlands were flat. So we cycled, I don't know, about 2 miles to this October beer fest. And we were having a good time, and maybe a few too many beers. And we were planning our future. We were planning that either I would move to Germany with my children. I was, you know, my marriage was over, and I had my 2 sons from my marriage plus my daughter from another engineered relationship. But we were making plans for what seemed like a healthy, stable, blended family future. And then while we were in the Oktoberfest, I went to the bar. I don't know why, probably leftover feminism thinking I should buy a round or something, I don't know. I went to the bar, and this stunning looking, otherworldly man, probably about 30, he looked like something off a movie. And his eyes were, again, with my research in hindsight, I'd nearly say he was like something out of the Matrix or something out of Black-Eyed Children or something. He was good looking in an otherworldly way that was dark and sinister, is the best way I could describe it. You know, I could maybe, I'm not really great at drawing, but maybe I could draw some of these memories. But as I stood at the bar, feeling joyful, after visiting Holger in Würzburg several times, and we were now starting to make concrete plans. Okay, will we live here, or will we live in Ireland? You know, what are we going to do to make a home for the children, and so on and so forth. And this guy came up to me, or stood beside me at the bar, and he just touched me. He literally put his hand on me, on my back, and it was such an electrifying experience. Again, in a dark way. I think this was MKUltra triggering. That the next morning, I secretly got up at 5:30 and left Holger. I think that's the last time I saw him. I literally just got up and snuck away and got the train to Frankfurt and came back to Ireland, and that was it. It was just as if somebody had done an intervention, just triggered me with a hand. First of all, there was the connection, and the justification I gave myself for leaving was because I'm very, you know, as my adult self, I believe in monogamy, and I believe in fidelity, and I couldn't live with myself if I thought I would ever cheat on a partner, husband, or, you know, somebody I was in a committed relationship. It wouldn't be in my nature to cheat. But the sexual charge that I got from this otherworldly looking guy, and it sounds corny, but I think he even had a black roll neck sweater on and black trousers. It just literally looked like something from another planet. But the sexual charge and the the sort of chemical thing, whatever it was done. Now, I didn't do anything about it, but I think Holger saw it happen. And he was convinced I was going to go home with this guy. And in 25 years, I'd never demonstrated to Holger that I would be the kind of girl to go out with somebody I loved to a beer fest and then go home with somebody else. But for whatever reason, whether Holger was compromised as well, he was fully convinced that you could see the connection with this guy, and I didn't do anything about it except for just get flustered. And then I might have gone out for a cigarette or something, and then Holger disappeared. And then I got really upset, thinking, why would he abandon me like 2 miles from home in Germany on a bicycle after a few beers? Why would he do that? And I cycled home on my own, angry. And, you know, we had a bit of an argument, and, you know, and he was like, well, you look like you met somebody and you were happy out, so why would I hang around for that? And, you know, still don't forget, even though he's multilingual like I am, but we're still speaking half German and half English to each other. And then I'm like, why would you think such a crazy thing? I know that guy was strange, and, you know, and I know something happened, but what would make you think I would go home with someone else? And then I slept in the guest room because I was upset with Holger for having abandoned me and having thought badly of me. And then I started to think, wow, maybe I was meant to go home with that guy. Maybe I should have gone home with that guy. Maybe Holger's always going to be insanely jealous and think the worst of me and blah, blah, blah. And I gave myself such turmoil that I literally dissociated or obeyed the trigger command. And like I said, I got up at 5:30. I snuck out as quietly. Nobody heard me. And I hitchhiked to the train station. And I got a train to Frankfurt and I came home. There were other occasions where, and this was where I preach a lot against the danger of going to psychics and fortune tellers. But I didn't know any better then. But I see now with hindsight, it seemed engineered. So I remember when I was considering emigrating to California, being drawn into the cult that was Est, Werner Erhard. Erhard's seminar training now goes by Landmark Institute, very similar to Scientology. But when I was being drawn, I'd already worked for them in London, and I think I'd already run an office for them in Dublin, or maybe not by that time, but I did at one time. Yeah, it must have been by that time, because then I emigrated there. But when I was being engineered into this emigrating to California to go and work at the head office of this cult, I saw 4 different fortune tellers, and one was in Spain. I'd been to San Pedro or something, and a couple were in London and one was in Ireland. And I can't make a case for 4 psychics or fortune tellers being put across my path, although it's very possible. You know, it wasn't something I used to compulsively consult psychics or fortune tellers. And it could have been engineered just by people saying to me, oh, I've seen this great psychic, why don't you go and check her out? Whatever. Could have been. You never know who's around you. So, yeah, not these 4 different psychics all came up with, oh yeah, you have to go, and this is why, and you and Werner, and he's the one, and this is his age, and he's got this many children, and yeah, this is your destiny, and blah, you know, crap that we listen to when we're under that spell. But it seemed very confirming at the time. It's only with hindsight that I think something strange there. And I've talked before about very clear assassination attempts on my life during that time when I was involved with Est. You know, the 2 most spectacular attempts being criminal car sabotage, you know, a tire flying off at high speed on the freeway, and then the brakes and steering failing, and the mechanic telling me I needed to report it to the cops because it was deliberate. it wasn't accidental, it was deliberate. But God delivered me from both those attempts, and probably some I've still haven't even processed as attempts on my life. Another engineered situation I think I talked about was Chico in Portugal, on the island of MKULTRA near Faro. At that time, I don't think it still has any electrical roads. You can only access the island by boat. And it turned out to be a big drug nexus for Europe. You know, for a short while, Portugal took over distributing drugs. I think mostly weed, around, you know, out of Morocco and stuff, because I think the Spanish connections had been busted. But you know, at that time I thought, well, that's random. And he, you know, he nearly strangled me to death because he was convinced I was Interpol or FBI or something, which again, I probably was, but unwittingly. And I'd been engineered there by an ex-military guy, 25 years in the Royal Air Force, who bought a yacht and just sailed around Europe and happened to have what I believe was another MK subject as his girlfriend. So they invited me to come visit, you know. And then I found out subsequent to that these girls, this cluster of beautiful girls from Cheltenham, and Cheltenham's quite a hub, you know, and also the home of GCHQ. But there were this cluster of beautiful girls around my older sister who lived in Cheltenham. And I believe they were pulled into situations as well, just as I've explained with this Air Force, supposedly retired from the Air Force, but I think he was working for MI5 or 6 or something, I don't know. Trying to think about other Men in Black scenarios. It wasn't always men, sometimes it was women. There was, I think, one boyfriend I had, I don't know if he's still alive, he went by the name of Gypsy, and again, very beautiful, and he'd been in a very successful pop band in Germany. He had a German mother, I think, and an English father, and they'd been big, but they'd got addicted to heroin. And then he woke up with the bandmate, Charlie, I think his name was, dead in bed beside him after a heroin overdose. And then Gypsy got clean, but I was singing in a band, and I think he saw me at a gig in Brixton in the George Canning. I was doing backing vocals and dancing. It was a pretty amazing band, but the lead singer was insane, and he's dead now. And he just kind of came home with me and didn't leave for 2 years, and you know, got engaged, and you know, I brought him home to meet the family, but he was a nightmare. He was a disaster, and I had to get rid of him, you know. So there was something, and he tried to get me into anarchy and stuff, which is not my nature, as many of you will know. But it's more than once that left-wing extremists tried to pull me in, either for a boyfriend or through university politics or whatever like that. And he would go on these things called Stop the City. I suppose it was an early version of the Occupy movement. And he was into like graffiti and anarchy, like just crazy shit. And I'm just like, no, you go ahead. That's not my thing. Even though I did lead campaigns and protests against homelessness at that time, I kind of did my little activism thing, but he was into way deeper, and I was like a sigh of relief when I finally got rid of him. What else would I consider engineered encounters, artificial encounters? That same with Holger Fichte. When I met him in Putney, he hounded me until I dated him. I was dating somebody else at the time, and I was not interested. You know, he was cute, but I was happily dating someone else. But he just pursued me relentlessly. That's very much a theme. And as I say, as an unresolved abuse survivor, when somebody pursues you, hunts you down, your boundaries get at some point you submit, if you haven't started the healing process. Any more of those strange encounters? Maybe just by sharing these ones, it'll bring some more to my memory. And maybe if I ever get to write a book, somebody can objectively put these in date order. There was I don't know. There's been others I should question, particularly in light of the Zorro Ranch, Santa Fe, New Mexico, because when I got to California, just on pure nerve and I think I was on autopilot, MKULTRA autopilot, but I rented a houseboat and I agreed to rent it and then thought, right, I can't afford it. It was $800 a month at that time. That was like 1985, something like that. I thought, right, I can't afford to rent this on my own. I'll get a roommate, because there was one big, it's the Caboose. My daughter went and visited it recently. It was a converted railway carriage mounted as to be a houseboat. And so there was one big double bedroom, with all glass windows out on the bay. And then if you go up a ladder, there was the actual caboose where, it was a double bed up a ladder. It was very, very, I don't know, picturesque, eccentric. But I advertised for a roommate, and this is in Sausalito in the Bay Area, and this guy from a very military family whose mother had also had extensive electroshock therapy, as my mother did, and should have been compensated for. Really, it was barbaric what was done to her. But this guy answered the ad, and again, I was so naive, I had no idea who was being placed and why. And only years later did I get question marks, and I think one of the reasons no, I won't say that actually, but I had trusted him and shared the houseboat with him platonically and thought we were going to be lifetime friends. And then we reconnected when I'd started to wake up and doing this kind of work. And I said to him something about child abuse, and he said, well, doesn't everybody fantasize about having sex with children? And that was the end of our friendship. But it's interesting to me that with hindsight, that he was possibly placed as my roommate on that boat during that time where I was getting assassination attempts and all the rest of it. So, and the Zorro Ranch thing is interesting. Rupert helped me draw this connection because part of the discrediting of the Hampstead children was, I can't remember if it was the judge or DC Martin said, oh, the children had watched The Mask of Zorro, and that's where they got a lot of their testimony from, which is ridiculous. I'm sure you can, if you've watched the children's disclosures. I've never seen that movie. But then Zorro Ranch was Jeffrey Epstein, one of his, that was supposed to be his breeder ranch, where he fantasized about making 20 women pregnant at the same time, and selective DNA and all sorts of horrors and trafficking and probably rituals going on there. And that's where this ex-military family, probable Man in Black type of guy, moved to from the Bay Area. He settled in Santa Fe, New Mexico, and I severed relations with him. We only stayed in touch via Skype or maybe a Christmas card or something. But his business was also, he was always going to Thailand and Tibet and Bangkok, and bringing back and selling stuff in America. Carpets and art and traders of the lost art kind of stuff. So those are just a few examples of encounters that at the time seemed weird, and only with hindsight, and it just helps to speak them out, are probably handlers to move me around, you know, a chessboard as an MKUltra asset, not employee, and certainly not on a wage packet. Right, I'll leave it there for now. Angela Power Disney on Facebook, and I've got a group there called, it's a closed group with about 800 or 900 members, but I guard it as closely as I can. It's called Mind Control, Social Engineering and Diabolical Experiments in the UK and US. God bless. AngelasCashes.org.
Right.